Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. Your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. And today, the day is Wednesday, and you know what that means. It means it's time to preview tonight's edition of AEW Dynamite. But on this Wednesday, we don't just have that to talk about. We have all the huge news from yesterday to talk about as well. WWE, Netflix, they're going to be partners for potentially the next 20 years. It is huge. It was one of the biggest days in WWE history, and we're going to talk about all of that and more. But firstly, let me introduce the co-host of the show, Clark Taylor. Clark, how are you today?
Dude, I'm fired up to be here on a Wednesday. This is an insanely fun show. We've got Dynamite. It's Rumble Week. We've got big news in the WWE. TKO, you know how big of a mixed martial arts fan I am. It affects the UFC too. All of this does. The Netflix scoop. We've got so much to get into today. I can't wait to get after it, Ben. And let's do it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it does absolutely affect UFC as well, because obviously they're the same parent company or whatever it is you want to say about it. So this is big for them, undoubtedly. Where, you know, we don't know about UFC's next TV deal yet. Could they be linked on Netflix? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But also joining us today, we have Soul. Soul, how are you?
Oh, very well indeed, big man. I mean, look at the week we've had. Literally across the line of the wrestling world, things have been aflame, and obviously Rumble Week is coming up. So I am just going to be absolutely ecstatic to see all the Cody Rhodes and CM Punk fans cry when they don't win, because my man The Miz is going to win the Royal Rumble because he is awesome. I'm just saying.
He is awesome.
Miz. That's a wild call. That is maybe the most wild call. And I predicted Finn Balor, which is something which I'm beginning to regret now. But I've said it, so I might as well stick with it. Balor Priest at WrestleMania. I'll pretend that's what's going to happen, even though with this Rollins injury, I don't think a cash-in is happening anytime soon. But last but certainly not least, we have the man who goes by many names, but today he is Carter Crisp. Carter, how are you?
Ben, I'm doing good. You know, there's Clark mentioned combat sports. There's a lot of money flying around right now. So per my cousin Cardi Cornette's direction, I am now paying attention to the big company again. K1, the Japanese kickboxing organization, is back. Kayla Harrison has just signed with the UFC. Cash is flying everywhere. Triple H is making moves. I'm ready to go.
Absolutely. No, it is certainly a wild time to be a wrestling fan right now. But let's get into the big news from yesterday. And of course, that was WWE Raw is heading to Netflix for the next 10 years, with an option for Netflix to leave the deal after 5 years or extend it potentially an extra 10 years, meaning it could last until 2045. And this starts in 2025. And on the surface, that's a great deal. Fantastic.
2035,
but it actually... Right? Pardon?
10 years, 2035. 45.
No, 20. No, I'm saying if it goes 20 years.
Oh, 20
which
years.
Which the option is that.
I'm not the math guy. That's my fault.
We got to put the maths counter back down to 0 for you, Clark. But thankfully, Nick Khan is very good at doing maths and finance and all of that, because the deal is $5 billion. A $5 billion deal for the 10 years. $5 billion. Absolutely huge. But it's not just Raw, because in the US it is just Raw, but internationally, it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and the WWE Network. Now we know in the United States the WWE Network no longer exists and it is now under Peacock. Well, it looks like that's going to be happening in the UK, in Latin America, in Canada, but under Netflix instead. And the even more interesting point is that next year, the TV rights, the Peacock WWE Network TV rights are up there as well. So it's even going to be even crazier next year, because maybe, just maybe, we could see the WWE Network heading to Netflix in the US as well, and this deal becomes even bigger. Honestly, it's a great time for WWE, and Nick Khan is the man at the front of this deal. He was there front and center with Ari Emanuel yesterday. Ari Emanuel was putting him over as the man behind the deal. I mean, honestly, Nick Khan genuinely is probably WWE's best signing of the last decade. This man has come in, he sold the company, he got them that original Peacock deal, he got them, I believe he even got them the Fox deal as well. Like, I mean, this guy has done an absolutely tremendous job, and now a $5 billion TV deal on Netflix. It is fascinating, and I said it when I was talking about the Prime rumors. Investors aren't sure about, how to feel about these streaming websites or whatever. They're not sure how to feel about them compared to cable TV. When other companies have done similar things, their stocks have dropped, and people expected WWE or TKO to follow the same pattern, but it didn't. It didn't happen. The stock went up, and not only did TKO stock go up, so did Netflix's stock. Honestly, this deal, I can't even exaggerate, how great of a deal it is. The investors are that confident in streaming when usually they're not that confident about it yet. But this is a game changer, an absolute game changer. The entire history of Raw, it's been on cable television. Well, now it is going to streaming. It's going to remain 3 hours. For the time being, it's going to remain on Monday nights as well, because it's doing very strong numbers on Monday nights. There's a lot of other stuff lying around, but I'm excited. But Clark, I've been dying to get your thoughts on this.
So I don't know exactly where to start, because I got a lot to say about this one. It's an unprecedented deal. It's unbelievable, right? You're actually breaking the longest running episodic cable television show on TV, right? We've heard that plenty of times from the WWE. That will go away. SmackDown's about 6 years away from catching that record. SmackDown internationally will be on Netflix. Not so far, not so fast. Might still stay on cable. That might create an interesting dynamic from a booking perspective of the two shows, considering you have one on streaming and one on cable. I also think it will affect the way that the show is filmed, because as you mentioned, 3 hours, I do not think it will be 3 hours anymore, because
it will. They've confirmed it's still going to be 3 hours.
I understand that you said that. I do not see that lasting long. I do not see people being required to pay for a streaming service that they might not already in order to watch a show with commercials. That's a difficult ask. I'm looking at 2.5 hours, something more traditional TV length, 3 hours, but in Raw length, not quite 3. I see that in the future, no matter what they've said thus far. It just doesn't make sense to me to sign up for 3 hours with commercials, and I don't see 3 hours of consecutive professional wrestling on Monday Night Raw. Otherwise, that deeply affects the way that you can negotiate the SmackDown deal on the other side, which is still out there in America. SmackDown, where they go, is going to be the most telling factor in this whole thing. The points that you made about Nick Khan, perfect sense. I couldn't agree more. Nick Khan has been nothing short of an asset, and that's where SmackDown, the tide has turned, but the attention in my eyes should turn over to the Blue brand, because we got to figure out what's going on there now. With a $5 billion deal, you're breaking this cable episodic streak. It's a big move. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot more factors at play than just the deal on paper out of the gates. And it's deeply going to affect not only SmackDown, but NXT as well.
Yeah.
As well as the rest of the programming. What happens with other programs, whether SmackDown is even a competitor to Raw any longer, is going to be fascinating. And I'm not saying that my prediction is that it will no longer be, but it's hard to quantify given the amount of revenue you're looking at on this deal over on Netflix by comparison to the deal for SmackDown. So that is going to be fascinating in and of itself, considering you have the biggest name in the business on SmackDown in Roman Reigns. Yes, internationally, SmackDown will appear on Netflix, but not in the States. And where will you consume your SmackDown? Now you're asking for 2 separate subscriptions. Also, PLEs, will they remain on Peacock? That's another factor at play here for the short term that I'm not totally sure has been answered. Right?
Yeah, they'll stay on Peacock until 2026, and then that's the question. The rights are up.
And then that's when the rights are up. So through 2026, and that's going to be a fascinating story to chase over the next, nearly 2 years, right? I guess a year and 11 months, basically, and change. But that's gonna there is so much going on here. On top of it's Netflix. They're a juggernaut. And to have Monday Night Raw go from being the cable juggernaut or record setter, as far as the cliche I've repeated 1,000 times on this single take here, the longest running episodic, to go to Netflix is a huge accomplishment. And I do think it does reestablish Monday Night Raw as the flagship brand of WWE. And I think that's a factor we haven't even mentioned yet. That is really interesting.
It really, truly is interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's about 500 million a year if it's a 10-year deal at 5 billion. And then SmackDown, according to CNBC, is 287 million a year. So it's almost double that. Unless I've got my maths wrong there, but I don't think I have. I mean, it really is interesting, and also something that I just want to point, which you referenced earlier on, about, well, how will it work when on some things it's on streaming, others it's on cable television? Well, with AEW, that's already the case. And what they do in AEW is, when you guys have the picture-in-picture breaks, we're just seeing the action. And I mean, SmackDown might not have picture-in-picture breaks, but we'll still see the action according to CNBC. That's the way they're going to do it.
I mean
and
it more
Netflix,
in the context of, I don't mean it, how will it affect it internationally? I mean it more in the context of how will it affect SmackDown's deal? Because if SmackDown's not generating that level of revenue that Raw has just signed for, there is no reason to book SmackDown as a premier show the way it has been booked for the last 5 to 7 years. So don't get me wrong. Like, I understand that, like, the commercial breaks and stuff internationally, that'll be different because it'll be on the same service. That's consolidated. But this television deal is Raw exclusive right now. And that's something that is really interesting. Not television, streaming deal. I apologize. Still getting used to that, guys. It's like pay-per-views and PLEs.
It's new.
Yeah, it's freaky. But it's cool. It's cool. And it's a money cannon through the industry. It's the same thing we've seen with movies over the last couple of decades. And I think we'll continue to see it as far as how we consume entertainment. But during this gap that we're bridging, SmackDown in America will remain on cable. And that will be an interesting how it affects ratings for SmackDown.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it is. It's very, very interesting. It's an exciting time. I think they've very tactically done this. I think they wanted a cable deal for one and a streaming deal for another. And I think that's kind of probably how they probably pitched SmackDown more to the cable TV companies and then Raw more to streaming. And yeah, I mean, the only other point I will make about it, though, is we're saying SmackDown, we're saying the Raw deal is so much more than the SmackDown deal. In actuality, because that deal also includes all the international deals, which they were earning a lot of money on. I actually don't know the maths on that, but it might end up being maybe more even than we realize. But even still, it's a big, big change on Netflix. The CNBC are saying that if you pay the higher tier, then you won't have ads. You can watch wrestling the entire show, but you won't miss anything major if you don't pay for the higher version and do have to see commercials on Netflix for the 3 hours initially. But Nick Khan said they're open to changing the day if it's not working out on Mondays. And like you said, Clark, maybe they'll change the hours too. But Soul, I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, for the way we consume WWE in the UK, this is a huge change.
Hey, mate, you've said it there, and I honestly think it's the best thing that could ever happen for the WWE International, because that's what I want to get the insight of as an international viewer. I feel like, especially now in the UK, France, Germany, all over, at least one in every maybe two people has Netflix. It's like the juggernaut streaming thing. Everyone has that or Disney Plus. So for that, hey, truly exceptional. But one of the things I want to talk about is I think the Netflix deal could actually revive a dead part of the WWE. And that is their documentaries, because I love me some WWE 24, WWE Chronicles. You look at Netflix, they've had great original documentaries like the Formula One, Making a Murderer, 13th, the Man in the Can documentaries.
Quarterback.
Their documentaries are exceptional. So if they could do something on like Roman Reigns run as the tribal chief, doing all like the stuff about that, and then go into other parts, maybe parts of history, not, Montreal Screwjob, that's been rehashed 6,100 million times, and I don't want to see that. But as well, Netflix is a big enterprise in itself. I wonder, could we maybe see an integration of WWE into their shows? Maybe have guest cameos in shows like Wednesday, or we could have the Judgment Day in Wednesday. That would be something to see. Could we have something like Seth Rollins appearing in Stranger Things or something like that? There could be a great opportunity for cross promotion of like, oh, who's the special guest star in Stranger Things, and oh, it's someone called Seth Rollins. Oh, they're on a show on Netflix as well. Well, I'll check that out. So I think that could allow a great opportunity from people who are watching those kind of shows to maybe check out, Raw. Obviously, with the international, we get to check out all the other ones as well. So I think this is going to be absolutely exceptional. No problems with it at all. But I also do wonder, though, because especially with the States, Raw's going to be on Netflix. SmackDown's going to be on USA Network. NXT is going to be on the CW. It's a lot spread out. So
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit tricky. Like if you wanted to like, oh, I want to watch WWE in its whole entirety, so I got to get Netflix for Raw, and then the Peacock's gonna have the PLEs or something like that. So that's a bit confusing there as well.
Yeah, it is.
Full cable.
SmackDown's then going to be on USA, and then the CW is going to be for NXT. So you're going to have like a multiple things to watch the entire like WWE product. So I think they're going to be for a while in a bit of a hazy spot, especially in the United States.
Yeah, no, you are right. It is going to be difficult, as it certainly is going to be one of those things where some casual fans are certainly going to get confused initially about it. I guess the argument against it is maybe they'll get some casual viewers from the CW network, for example, and stuff like that. But you are right. It's going to be slightly confusing for the first year, and that's why I think 2026. When the network rights are up, I think that's going to be very, very interesting indeed. Very quickly, a few comments here. We got Matt Williams saying, please tell me I'm not the only one that sees Ben every time Dragunov comes on my screen. I don't see that at all. What's the one?
Come on, what?
I don't see that one. The one which everybody always messages me about is, I think Francisco Akira, is it, in New Japan?
Oh, right. I mean, apparently I'm Tony Khan as well. So I mean, hey, we're
He got Tony Khan yesterday. He did mid-show. It was delightful.
Somebody did ask. Somebody actually came up to me once and said I looked like Harry Potter. That was the weirdest one I've ever had. But we've now got we got a few comments. We got number one, Superfly. What do you say?
I said you're a wizard, Ben. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. You've been spending too much time on Vine or whatever. But Bobby Petito says it'll be great to see Raw on Netflix. I agree. Number one, Superfly says, if Raw's going to air on Netflix, does that mean it'll be commercial free? So if you buy the higher tier, apparently yes. If you buy the lower tier, then no. And you'll miss nothing important if you don't have the higher tier. So basically exactly how AEW airs on Fight in the UK, where we see the stuff in between and it's like nothing of note. I usually skip it, to be honest, because you just know it's nothing of note.
That's where you get the best commentary between Taz and Excalibur. It's the Taz and
That's
Excalibur.
true. The commentary is the only good part. I will agree with that for sure. But last but certainly not least, Carter, I've got to get your thoughts on this absolutely industry-changing deal.
Well, Ben, I have some great points and one terrible point. So let me start off with the terrible one first. So we will no longer have to compare TV ratings, and we can now compare the ratings that matter. cage match ratings, which Tony's
No!
fantastic on. So no
No!
ratings. It's great. But the reality, and you know I will be affecting these cage match ratings personally. But the reality is, it looks to me like the PBC deal that just happened in boxing. Very heartfelt for me. PBC just left Showtime and went with Amazon Prime.
Great
And the
call.
reality is, it's very good for the business. It's healthy for the business, and we want our wrestlers to be making a lot of money, to be healthy, to have health insurance, things like that. And Netflix is a major platform, just like Amazon Prime. So it's all good. It's good for the future. It's a change. I mean, we're gonna miss Showtime sports. We're gonna miss HBO boxing, but life's about change, and it's a good change. I mean, it's gonna be different, and we'll just adjust. You know, I just canceled my DAZN, so got a little extra dough on the monthly, so I'll get that Netflix Prime going, and we'll get that commercial free. But I think it's very good for the business. It's going to be different, and we're going to have to adjust. But ultimately, it's going to be easier. We're younger, so we watch our TV on our video game consoles, on our computers. I think it's going to be a little more difficult for the older generation to adjust to the new streaming way of things.
No, absolutely. I mean, that is a great point. They are probably going to lose some of their older viewers on, well, apart from SmackDown, of course, and internationally they certainly are. The fact it's not on cable anymore, but it's going to be interesting. Like you said, change is good in most cases. In this case, I think it definitely will be. I mean, the stocks certainly think it will be. Investors think it will be. But only time will tell for sure. But now let's move on. And let's move on to talk about another news story which broke yesterday. And that is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is now back in WWE as he has been added to the board of directors. And when this news came out, one thing which people were very, very quickly saying was that, does this mean Vince is out? Because we know Ari Emanuel likes his odd number boards, right? He doesn't like it to be an even number. He likes odd numbers. Nope, they brought somebody in immediately the same time to put it up to 13. So yeah, that didn't happen. But The Rock is now back. He's on the board of directors. He wants to be heavily involved in both WWE and UFC as part of TKO, of course. And as part of the deal, The Rock, well, he now owns The Rock again. And despite years ago him saying he had this trademark, he clearly didn't have this trademark. But he does now. He has full ownership of it. And yeah, The Rock, he can now be called that on movies and everything. He won't need
We're now
Dwayne
allowed
Johnson.
to smell what The Rock is cooking for the first time in a long time, even if he's cooking it off of WWE television. And that's what's the most impressive thing about this. Honestly, it was a blast yesterday tracking this entire story. It was so fun. I watched the First Take episode myself. I actually joined Soul early on the pre-show for the daily yesterday, and we watched the First Take appearance. He said all kinds of great things. It's The Rock. He's in the New York City studio with Stephen A. Smith and Molly Kiram. And then you had Shannon Sharp over in the LA studio that we walked past every day to the WrestleMania convention. It was outstanding. It was a fun appearance to watch. And getting The Rock is huge. I don't know if that means that he'll be billed as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or just The Rock on movies in the future, but that could be fun. He also did mention that guy, he's like the chief,
Head of a table.
I think he sits at the end of the table. And he's got like the friend in the suit that's wise or whatever. Yeah, he's got the one wise friend, and then he's got one of the twins and the guy with the taped thumb. Is that broken? Is his thumb broken? I'm kidding.
No, it's more impact.
It's spikier that way. Because the tape's hardened. I hear you. No question. But he mentioned he and Roman Reigns, biggest Mania ever. My favorite quote of the entire interview. On the board of directors now. He knows what this is. I don't know if that means Philly. Philly doesn't. WrestleMania 40 is WrestleMania 40. It's an even number. You mentioned odd numbers earlier. But I don't know if that stadium's big enough for Rock and Roman. And he also said He's a long game guy. So I don't
did.
know if there's enough time, because between now and then, it's going to have to be some short game. We're still not even sure. And as much as I'd like to see it this year, I'm not sure what he said meant that it's this year, but if it is, I won't be shocked. And the addition is delightful. I mean, no coincidence. Ava immediately GM of NXT. We saw
No,
that.
I do think that's a coincidence. I'm sorry.
I completely do. That was a joke. Last night, if you watched off the air, that's what me and Sean said. We were like, definitely, but seriously, no, like complete coincidence. Not the point at all. But the Rock is now The Rock. We can just say that all the time. Don't have to say Dwayne Johnson. Don't even have to dance around it at all. And he's back. And if it's Rock Roman, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, no, I truly do think that is the direction we're heading in, because like you said, right, he did say he likes the long game and all that, but they've been teasing it for years. This has been the long game. And Cody had a quote earlier where he said, I don't think The Rock would just come in and, ruin this 2-year story. And all the comments on like everybody's pages, including our own, is people replying saying, hang on a second, Cody, yours is a 2-year story. This has been a 4-year story, this head of the table stuff. And The Rock's, the bigger story at the end of the day. So, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, considering the internet has heavily been, we want Cody Reigns, the response to those comments today have not been a good sign, and maybe makes you think, are people switching as we're getting closer, and are they more looking forward to a Rock potential match?
It was a fear I expressed, dude, immediately following last year's Mania. Remember, I said it. I said, hey, it adds up perfectly for Rocky too, but a lot of things can happen along the way. And you just can't predict the future. And long-term booking's great, but plans do have to change in the short term. No doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt whatsoever. Well, let's now move on. And let's move on to talk about All Elite Wrestling and what All Elite Wrestling are doing tonight. Because tonight, they've stacked Dynamite. Why have they stacked Dynamite? Well, because the rankings are back and they can get away with doing absolutely random matches now and having the excuse, oh, it's for the rankings. In all seriousness, it's actually a decent excuse to use. It's why it is, I think, a good move for them. Makes storytelling a bit harder, but if you book long term, then you're fine. It'll be all good. But there are some exciting matches tonight on Dynamite. And let's kick things off with Swerve Strickland and Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy has been complaining on those social media apps. He's been getting his fingers out and going on these phone, and has been tweeting away and saying, I am trapped in the realm of AEW Rampage. Well, trapped you are no longer, because tonight you get an opportunity on Wednesday Night Dynamite against the hottest act in AEW right now in Swerve Strickland. Sol, what's your thoughts heading into this match?
I mean, the thing with Jeff is, it's only his own fault why he's sort of being trapped in this own thing. Personal demons are one thing, and they are very hard to break. But, repetitive cycles, you lose some trust. But hey, he had that stellar match with Darby on Rampage, so it shows that he has still got a good aspect in the ring. I think from this, it's basically like a tester to see how things go on the bigger platform, the main one, the main stage, the Ocho, the old main stage itself. But I think as well with this and Swerve, to have, obviously, I feel Swerve's going to beat Hardy, and this is going to make him look good for going against Samoa Joe. Maybe at Revolution or in the future. But I feel like, where does it lead Hardy? And I think maybe, Jeff could lose to Swerve, the biggest star, and be a bit broken. I mean, have the broken Hardys come back, have Matt do it as well and have a wee bit of a run there. I think with the Hardys, especially in AEW, it's very hard to do, I think, honestly, anything with them, really. I mean, they had that opportunity to win the AEW Tag Team Championships. Things got in the way, and that whole thing just concluded. And then what do you do with them? Honestly, I mean, I think they'll do this run here, do something all in on a big stage, and they'll do the way like Punks, and they will return to the WWE for their Hall of Fame induction and the Legends contract. I think that's what's going to happen, personally. I think they'll go back, get the whole celebration and everything, which they rightfully deserve. Like, don't get me wrong, they rightfully do deserve that. But I as a fan, and I'm sure TK as a booker, it's very hard to do things to Hardy because you don't know how reliable you can be with them with long-term stories. We know TK loves his long-term stories, but we've seen in the summer of 2022 how injuries and things get in the way of long-term stories and just mess everything up. But yeah, I'm happy with Swerve getting this match against a legend like Hardy.
I do just want to quickly jump in here and defend Matt Hardy, because he has been there for, since 2020 now, and he has been super reliable for them time and time again. He's actually kind of the one who I feel worse for in this situation, the fact that he's not getting opportunities to do something, even as a manager, because I feel like there's something there for him, but I do agree. Jeff Hardy, it's an opportunity tonight. You're complaining, well, you've got an opportunity, so prove yourself. But I do agree, Swift's definitely getting this win so he can climb up those rankings. Triple threat's what I'm calling, but we'll have to wait and see, that is for sure. But now let's move on, to talk. Well, actually, before we move on, we got a couple of comments real quick. We've got Bobby Batista, who's excited and he's looking forward to the match tonight. And Numero 1 Superfly is saying Swerve is winning. Not sure where Jeff goes from this match. I do want to see a dance battle between Jeff Hardy and Prince Nana, though.
We got one.
You love these dance battles.
We already got a dance battle.
Between Jeff Hardy and Prince Nana?
Oh, Jeff. Oh, the Juke? Yeah, now we're talking.
Are we just going to get like a Dance Dance Revolution AEW game in the future where everyone just has to dance and stuff like that?
It'll sell more copies than Fight Forever did. But anyway, let's now move on. Let's move on to talk about... let's move on to talk about Hangman Page. I just mentioned him. I think it's going to be a triple threat. I think we're building to Joe versus Swerve versus Hangman, which I would not be against. I'd very much like to see that triple threat match. I'm more than happy to see 3 men in the ring, but when it gets more than 6 men, too much for my liking. But tonight he is facing Penta El Zero Miedo on Dynamite, and I'm excited for this one. Penta, every time he gets an opportunity, he shines, doesn't he? He has been with AEW from the start, and he has delivered from the start. I'd actually have liked to see more of him at times than we actually have, gotten to see. But Hangman Page versus Penta, this feels like 2019 Dynamite, and I'm all for it. Carter, what's your thoughts heading into this one?
Ben, I think Tony's playing with his action figures, and I love it. This is going to get 6 stars. Out of 5. 6 out of 5. Out of 10 is going to get 12 stars on Cage Match tonight. I think it's going to be fantastic. One of the big benefits of AEW, like one of the big benefits of WCW back in the day, is the international talent, and the luchadors on AEW's roster are amazing. One of them who's sitting in the background, Bandito, I'm waiting for that return. I'm excited for. But I mean, the different styles are a big part of what makes AEW a little more exciting than the bigger company. You go to the bigger company and you have to conform to the way they do things. So I think this is going to be great. Styles make fights, and Hangman Page is a main eventer. He is not getting that belt off of Joe, Ben. I guarantee it. Bet the house on it. But it will be a good match if he does. But I think this is just going to be a great midweek 10-star TV match. Tony's playing with his figures, and it's great. The rankings are back. Punk's out. Flowers and chocolates in the locker room in AEW now. It's all smooth. I think it's the AEW's in a great place too. I think both companies, as much as the tribalism can make us, look at the negativities, I think both businesses are kind of playing really well together, as much as they might be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I said it in a reel yesterday, and I disagree with some of the things you said there, but I do agree that it's a great time for AEW right now. The fact that they've not lost their TV deal to WWE is huge in itself. But now Netflix is heading into that streaming game. Well, maybe HBO will jump in too. We know there's a partnership there between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery. Well, that Netflix deal might end up being very, very good for AEW as well if HBO want to jump into wrestling. But now let's move on to talk about what will be, I presume, the main event on tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. And listen, a lot of people lately, a lot of podcasts, including some that we listen to, Carter, they've been saying maybe Tony Khan isn't cut out for this job. Maybe he needs to, find something else. Well, I've applied to a job on his behalf, right? I've applied to a job in a kitchen for him because he is certainly cooking something up tonight, and that is Suzuki versus Adam Copeland. And this is one of those matches where you just never expected to see it, did you? Like, in a million years, you never imagined that you could possibly see something like this. You go back in 2019, Edge was retired, Suzuki was in New Japan. You tell someone in 2024, you're going to see Edge versus Suzuki, they'd be like, no way! Does Edge return and Suzuki goes to WWE? No, it happens in this all new promotion called AEW. They'd be shocked. It would be an absolutely, shocking thing. But 2024, it's happened. And I'm excited for it. Carter, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm just wondering what Tony has against Adam Copeland. Maybe Christian set this up because poor Adam's going to get into the ring with an absolute punisher. For those who don't know, Minoru Suzuki is an old school catch wrestler. He practically invented modern MMA as we know it through Pancrase. And he's not going over to the big company anytime soon. He's going to be, one thing I guarantee you, at least 5 chops. You're going to see Adam Copeland he's going to be put on the edge from boom, 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 boom. It's going to be great. It's going to be, I learned a lot of submissions from Minoru Suzuki myself. I have a flying armbar that I can't wait to try on Clark the next time we are in the backyard.
Smash.
But no, it's going to be, again, I go back to Tony playing with his action figures. This is something where you go, like Cody Rhodes, The Rock, you're just grabbing your action figures, putting them in the ring. Minoru Suzuki, Edge. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. There's going to be chops, and hopefully Clark sees some moves that are a little preliminary because Suzuki, like myself, is an old school catch wrestler.
You say that, but when I hear about you and Clark grappling, every time I'm like, I feel like you're the indie darling of grappling, where you do some really cool, innovative stuff, and I don't know what you'd call them, but the traditionals of MMA will be like, oh, that's wrong, you're not meant to do that, and you're like, nope, take another super kick, or flying armbar in this case. That's certainly...
He's a nutcase.
Clark's been the job
lately,
but we'll turn that around.
Dude, he got me in the toe hold, and I literally was just I sat in it for way too long. That's not the point.
I had to listen to that story, viewers, for about 3 weeks after it. But now let's move on. So, what are your thoughts on tonight's main event? Copeland, Suzuki. Tell me about it.
Suzuki versus Copeland. Oh man, that is something I love to see. And people moaning like, "Oh, where's the story? Where's all the things about it?" Mate, it's Suzuki versus Adam Copeland. I would say things, but this is a family-friendly show. We are PG-13 here on the Daily Broadcast. Now, look, I love to see where this could go. Right? If Adam Copeland's going on like an international open, give it to me. Hell yes, I will take it. Think about it. You could have, you could have Copeland versus Ishii. You could have Copeland versus El Fantasma. You could have, Adam Copeland versus the War Dogs or something like that. Something I would love to see as well. Reestablish a union that was lost. Have Adam Copeland versus Nick Nemeth. Have that, and how you can allow this to help build TNA and keep both men strong. Moose causes a DQ and brawls with Nemeth, and that will allow to help build for TNA as well. Both men look strong, and hey, look, the thing we've seen what Nick Nemeth can do in the WWE. I mean, him and Copeland, we saw him sell Goldberg's spear. Give him a Copeland spear, and because hey, Copeland's got the best spear in the game. I'm sorry, Braun Breaker, it ain't you, it's Copeland. So yeah, I'm very excited for this to go as well. But other individuals as well, I feel like we are building to obviously the rematch of Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage, ladder match for the TNT Championship. Come on, it's got to be a ladder match. Those boys are like ladder enthusiasts. They love those things.
Why would you put Christian Cage's body in damage like that? Danger. Whatever.
Look, Look, Allison, my boy. You see the title behind me right there, right? You see my baby, my TNT Championship replica that I got from All In Weekend. That belt looks too good around Adam Copeland's waist. I love Christian Cage. I love how his whole thing's going on with the patriarchy. But Metalingus and that belt, that's a union that has to be brought back again.
Well, we got a couple of comments. We got Coach 23 saying they had a feud back in 2011, and he's also jumping in on the lookalikes thing from earlier, saying that he sees me as a cross between Dragunov and Wade Barrett. I do not.
That's a reach.
Wade?
I do not see the Dragunov one in the
Isn't Wade Barrett
slightest.
like 6'7"?
In fact, I don't think they're talking about height. I think they're talking about face, considering they just see me at my face level. But yeah, I mean,
we could just grab Barrett's phone and see if your Face ID unlocks. I mean, that works. I mean, we know it's real.
I guess that's the only way to do it. But no, I do agree, but I don't agree that TNA and AEW doing anything anytime soon, because Scott D'Amore and Tony Khan, based on what they've hinted at in interviews, I don't think those two are gonna be in a room anytime soon, even if a door is unlocked. Maybe that is the real Forbidden Door. But Clark, how are you feeling heading into this just massive match on Dynamite?
Dude, Carter's excited for the chops. I'm excited for the forearms to the chin. That's my favorite Minoru Suzuki spot, is right in the mouth, the elbow. It'll be stiff. It'll be snug. What I'm most interested in, though, is that Gotch-style pile driver. One mountain Edge hasn't climbed since he's been back from a neck injury is taking a pile driver. We saw him take numerous tombstones from The Undertaker on the way back. Does he take a Gotch-style pile driver from Minoru Suzuki tonight, or do they avoid that spot? I'm interested in that. I imagine he takes the pile driver. I think he's healthy. I think he can do it. I think Minoru Suzuki's safe enough, and I think that's something that we see, and I think he kicks out of it impressively enough. Wins via spear. I think it's one mountain we haven't climbed. He stands up from the pile driver. The commentary can really make a big deal about it. And all of a sudden, we understand this is pro wrestling. And he's not going to be put at risk because you're with a pro's pro.
But it doesn't matter if you're with a pro's pro. When there's two sweaty men in that ring, you could slightly slip. Anything can go wrong. And when you have, I know that anything can go wrong at any time. But that move, when you have somebody up, and if they fall directly on the neck, I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, you mentioned the pile driver. Tombstone pile driver. He didn't even take one of those since he's returned, unless I'm wrong.
My point was before he returned.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
From his rivalries with The Undertaker, right? The only allowed pile driver in the WWE during his run, considering the pile driver was banned, as we know, right? Outside of him and Cactus Jack, I believe, was allowed to do the stump puller pile driver version at a certain point during that early 2000s run. But beyond that, I see that being a big spot tonight. And the ultimate babyface comeback from the ultimate babyface who's made the ultimate babyface comeback in real life, on screen, done all of it, Adam Copeland. And I think he spears and cuts Minoru Suzuki right into 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring.
Well, I said Tony Khan was cocking. Well, if Adam Copeland takes a pile driver and then kicks out of it, I'll be giving him a 1-star hygiene rating, because that is just putting your kitchen in danger.
Nope.
No, I don't like kick out to pile drivers anyway.
It's going to be the spot of the night tonight.
But I don't care. It's risky and it's a stupid spot. You're dropping someone on the neck. They're not kicking out.
15 years in the making. Edge wants it. Trust me.
But it's not like there's a big story here. Listen, I'm not saying the match needs a story. It doesn't. It's a dream match,
Did you just say there's not a big story around a guy kicking out of a pile driver that came back?
But they've not hyped it up as that. They've not told us a story, Clark.
The moment will land.
You're having a go at what people were saying about Cody Rhodes finishing the story last year when you said there was no story. You're now those people.
Well,
but anyway,
there is still no story.
Well, I agree, but you're being the people who are saying there's a story by reaching. That's what's happening. But anyway, on that note, guys, we're going to be ending the show. It's been a really, really fun one. There's been a lot to talk about. Thank you to everybody in the comment section on both YouTube, Instagram, and everything else. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, please give us a cheeky 5 stars. Those 5 stars mean the world to us. They're the real 5 stars, unlike those frauds on Cage Match. But yeah, absolutely. We'll be back here tomorrow, slightly later start time, 11 p.m. UK. That's 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific. That's right, Clark? Throwback?
That's going to be 3 p.m. Pacific. That's noon over in Hawaii.
Noon in Hawaii too. There we are. Thank you, Clark. Thank you, Carter. And thank you all for joining me here today. It's been a fun one. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.